Hi, my name is Samuel George, and this is part 1 of assignment 4 for Comp 533. In this part, we're just going to go through the explicit receive on both the server side and the client side. So I'm kind of going to do this one along the way with this one, just showing each of the steps and the correctly interlaced internal tracings and the content of the message from the server. This is going to be in the form of the do operations, the send objects, and the send byte buffers. We're going to explain each of these thoroughly, and we're going to show breakpoints illustrating each of these points, and then show the tracings down here that the client was also doing the correct thing. Part 2 is going to cover just part 2 here, and part 3 is going to be simulations. So to begin, we're just going to start the server example we were given. So you can see this is going to set all, initialize our port, add listeners, set our factories, etc., and then call this implicit receive. This receive is not listening to any particular client. That's important for the start. So you can see in this receive message, we're going to go and get from a blocking buffer factory. This is a factory I created to get each of your buffers, and you're going to get the server buffer. Since we're implicitly waiting and there has been no previous sender, we're just going to wait on the general server buffer queue. Okay, so that will stop there. Okay. And in our blocking blocking buffer factory, we requested the queue for the general server buffer. So that's going to just go ahead and get created, and we can see our server is stopped. So queue is created for the general server's use. Okay. And then we'll also show that the server will create queues for each client as it connects. So client 2, just to show that you can connect with 2 clients, we're going to start this one in debug mode, and this one's just going to do a receive. So likewise, his receive is going to ask for the client buffer from the server, or from the blocking buffer queue. So we're going to create for client use here, and you can see what queue was created for the client. Okay. So that's our client 2, and then our client 1 is going to show receiving messages and cover all this workflow. So in client 1, we're going to start him in debug mode. Okay, and the first thing we're going to do is going to send a byte buffer, and this is going to be the first message that the server receives. We're going to show the workings of an explicit receive on a general way, and then we're also going to show with send objects the explicit receive on the general on a specific client's queue. So we're going to send, this is consistent with what Dr. Dewan had us do for that, and we'll show this. So we sent a byte buffer, okay, and you can see this thread is stopped, which is good. He's waiting for a response from send byte buffer. So the server has woken up. It has been notified. So this shows the server intercepts calls from the clients. Okay, you can see we're about to print that we have a new message. So we print, we've received a byte buffer. Okay, and then we're going to first put on the client queue, since this receive notifier works for both the client and the server. We're just going to skip through that because we're going to put messages for client use, but none of them are going to be read. So we already care about that. The way this general notified receive works is if a client has contacted you before, then you just put onto the specific client's specific buffer. So this is to get the server port buffer for that particular client, and we're going to show that in the second go. But since this is a general message and the server has yet to receive from this client, it's going to go into the general server buffer, and we'll see the print there. Okay, so we're going to put there. So you can see we got a notification saying that there was a put into the general queue. Okay, and you can see over in the receive that the message has been dequeued. So we've taken off the general server buffer. The message has been dequeued, and the message has been printed. Okay. In the meantime, the thread calls receive again and is again waiting, but this time the receive message is going to be specifically for client 1. So we can see we're asking now for a specific port for client 1. So we dequeued from the general server, and now we're calling that receive again, and that receive again is going to create a one for a particular client. Okay, so now this one is waiting on receives from this client buffer, client 1. Okay, so this is the server notifies the enqueuing of the correct messages. That was putting the message in the general queue. Then we'll see creating a blocking queue for the specific client. That's here. The queue is created for client 1's use, and this guy is now ready to send an object along, and this will show the specifics. This will show the receive call getting messages from the blocking queue. We've seen that once on the server's general queue, but we will see it again. Again, we have it here over in the general queue where it was put and it was dequeued, but we'll also show for the specific client queue with this send objects. Okay, so when we go to send objects, we see the client is now blocked, or has fully sent its object, and now we've gotten a receive from the server again, but this time it's specifically from client 1. So we'll advance that. So client 1 is sending a value of 2. Okay, we'll put it again into the general client, but this time we're going to actually put the message in the specific queue for the server, which we'll see here. Okay, now the receive has been called. Okay, so this is the receive in the server for the specific client, and it's going to say the message has been dequeued and that the message was received. Okay, and now he's going to call receive again on that same client. Okay, so this was the server receive call getting from the message from the blocking queue. So the message was dequeued from client 1 on the server side, and the receive notifier put it into that server queue for client 1, and we'll see with client 1 we're going to do operations. Okay, so this time the receive here, we've received a new message, and the input port is going to call receive and wait. Okay, so to show the client side for the custom tracings, all right, from the first 3, we're going to send first. The client actually hasn't gotten anything yet, so the queue was created for the client's use when it called receive, and now we're waiting. It called do object or increment value. Okay, so that value was incremented. This was in the do operations. So since this one is blocked, basically waiting for the response from that do operations, we're actually going to increment, where you put it into the general queue. We respond to it. Okay, so then begin to receive from client 1, and the response is sent back. So we received an increment, and now it's time for the server has gotten, or the client, excuse me, has gotten back the message from the server. Okay, so this is to cover the client and show the custom tracings. So when it called its receive, it created a queue for its own use. So the queue was created. This is going to put the response from the server back into the client queue, which is going to be these two. These are going to get called, and then we don't really care. We're going to put in the server queue. That's fine. All this doesn't matter because the client only uses this client queue. So these are just for server side. All right, so the return value received is called, which is doing nothing. Some of this goes into part 2, but it's just to show that the message was put into the client queue. Okay, so we put the message into the client queue, and now we're going to print that we have pulled in our receive return message. We have taken off of that queue, and we have a bunch of breakpoints in here to illustrate the second one, but that pretty much shows the workflow. Okay, so you can see we pulled on the client side. We want to show the 3 custom tracings. So the first one being that the client we put in the general client queue. Then the message was dequeued, and the other guys were notified, and that was complete. Okay. And we've sent a second message. This message is the get value. So we'll go ahead and let that play through on the server side with all the same guys. Okay. And now you can see we're ready to receive the value, return value of the do operations. This is going to open up the receive, show the dequeuing, and the value was 6. Okay. So putting this through, we're then going to call receive again. And the server is now waiting. Okay. Or the client is now waiting also. Okay, so we showed the server intercepting calls. We showed the enqueuing into the correct one. We showed that the blocking queue was created for the specific client, and the receive call got the message from the blocking queue. On the client side, we showed that the client created a client queue, that it pulled messages, the notifier put messages into that client queue, and we showed that it pulled messages off of that client queue. Okay. So that wraps up part 1 of assignment 4.